All right, so the general narrative out there is that Vancouver real estate is super overvalued. And in this video, I'm gonna go over some reasons why I think it may not be overvalued. So feel free to drop me a comment on why you think I'm such a clown for even suggesting the fact that Vancouver real estate may not be overvalued. And if you disagree with the guy calling me a clown and you're interested to hear what I have to say, then please stick around to the end of the video. Let's get into it. I'm That Agent Kelly. I talk about Canadian real estate and my local market of Abbotsford in the Fraser Valley. And hey, if you get any value or interest from this video, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel so you could get to see more content just like it. And if you like this video, please do like it so I can get it out to more people just like yourself who may like this video. And always, if you're interested in chatting about buying or selling real estate, you can scroll down and click on my calendar link and book yourself right in my calendar at a time that's convenient for you to chat about buying or selling real estate. All right, so the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver aggregate pricing as of January 28th. It peaked out at 1.264 million and is now 1.14 million for a roughly 10% drop on the home price index. Now there are certain product types that are down more than this, certain areas that are down more than this, and there are some product types and areas that might even be up in price, but this is just the aggregate pricing for all of the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver. So I often hear people talking about Vancouver real estate is so overvalued because of the price to income ratio. The argument here is that prices of homes in Vancouver have become completely detached from the incomes in Vancouver, and how are people possibly affording to buy a home in Vancouver now that that is the case, and that the pricing should come down to reflect the incomes within the area. So what is deemed to be affordable is a 5x multiplier on the price to income ratio, meaning if that you make 100 grand, let's just say the average household income is 100 grand and the average home price is 500K, that would be a 5x multiplier. Currently, right now, Vancouver's trading at a 12.9x multiplier. And you know what? Honestly, it makes sense. Like, you know, if people can't afford to make the mortgage payments in that area, then how are prices going to keep going up? However, if we look at other large international metropolitan cities, this is not what has historically happened in the past. So let me give you a few examples of other cities. Hong Kong trades at a 44.9x multiplier, Beijing 46x, Shanghai 46.6x, Moscow, or Moscow if you will, is a 21.6x, Paris is a 20.6x, Milan 19x, Stockholm 14.3, and London is a 16x multiplier. And there are many more, but this is just to name a few, just to give you guys the idea here. But Vancouver is a relatively young city. It's been around for 150 years or something like that, whereas all these other cities have been around for hundreds of years and have had tons of time to mature over time. And in my opinion, Vancouver could have a long way to run even at a 12x multiplier. Who knows? It could be a 30x multiplier 30 years down the road if we just look at what these other cities have done. And there are currently, I think it's like 350,000 Canadian residents living in Hong Kong, and our prices here in comparison to theirs are a joke. A starter 2-bed, 2-bath condo in Hong Kong will run you about 2 million Canadian dollars. I think it's like 2.3 Canadian bucks or something like that. So another thing I want to touch on in terms of rent pricing. Many times in the past, it seems like rents are at their cap. They can't get any higher than this. How could they get any higher than this when the average household income is 80 grand and it now costs, 3,500 bucks to rent a 1-bedroom apartment? How is that possible? Well, in places like Hong Kong and Tokyo and other cities like this, first off, they don't even really have detached homes. They pretty much just have condos. But secondly, it's actually super uncommon for one person to live in a condo unit. Typically, it's 2 to 4 people living in a condo. I've even seen pictures of a 1-bedroom apartment where there's like 4 bunk beds in the 1-bed apartment and there's 4 people living in that 1 bedroom. And I know this sounds terrible and a completely dystopian way of life, but I honestly think this is a possibility for Vancouver, where that if the rent prices exceed the incomes within that area, instead of the rent prices capping or coming back down, I think we would just start putting more people in the units to split the rent so the rent is cheaper per person. So instead of having one person renting a studio or a 1-bedroom apartment, maybe they share it with somebody else. And I'm not saying that's right or that's a good thing or anything. I'm just saying, I'm just taking an approach that that's what's happened in other cities. So it's possible that this could happen here. The next thing I want to touch on is that it is not uncommon for a large international metropolitan city to be driven by wealth as opposed to income. And what I mean by that is typically you find the wealthiest of the wealthy living in these cities. And wealthy people don't necessarily need to have high incomes, they just need to have high net worths. So a price to income ratio doesn't tell you the full picture when somebody could be making $100,000 a year, and if they buy a $2 million home on a price to income ratio, that's a 20x multiplier. How in the world would they afford that? But if they're buying it with $2 million cash, then the price to income ratio doesn't really matter because they don't have a mortgage payment. And another thing is this person could actually be making a lot more than 100 grand a year if they run a business and they just decide to pay themselves out in the form of dividends 100 grand a year. Maybe the business makes $1 million a year and they're only paying themselves out personally 100 grand a year. 34%, I believe, is the statistic. It might be 28%. Maybe I'm confuting it with something else, but it's 28 or 34% of homes in Vancouver are owned outright with no mortgage at all. I'm a realtor and I can tell you that the bulk of the clients I'm working with are not putting down 20%. They're putting down 30 to 50% when it comes to buying a home over, 800 grand. And sometimes buying it all in cash. I'm currently working with a buyer who's looking for a $1.8 million home that they are going to buy all in cash. The wealthy immigrants are coming here, and most of the people that are buying homes here are getting gifted down payments from their parents who were baby boomers who bought something in the 90s. They rode the market all the way up and now they're all millionaires. So they're giving their kids $300,000 for a down payment, and then their kid might go buy a $600,000 condo. So that being said, the price to income ratio doesn't necessarily matter. It doesn't tell the full picture. We can't just look at that one metric and say Vancouver real estate is overvalued. So what metrics do we really have to tell us that Vancouver real estate is actually overvalued? Definitively tell us that Vancouver real estate is overvalued. We can take a guess, and I would say that that's a pretty good guess. I'm not going to say you're wrong, but we have nothing to tell us definitively that it is overvalued. Real estate isn't like the stock market where you can see a stock and be like, it's overvalued because it should be making X amount of dollars, and based on its future growth potential of the company, it's trading rich right now. It should be trading at a 20 PE ratio, and right now it's at 27. This is overvalued. But in real estate, we don't really have anything like that. And the thing with stocks is I like Pepsi stock, but I don't need to buy Pepsi stock. With real estate, I need somewhere to live. Maybe I don't buy it, but if I rent it, that still adds rental demand to the market, which could push up rental rates, which pushes up yields for investors, which raises the price of real estate. All in all, when we look at other cities and what they've done historically and what could potentially happen to Vancouver, there is a potential that Vancouver still has a long way to go before we're at a ceiling for pricing. Vancouver is heavily restricted when it comes to supply. Our building permit times, our approval times, everything takes insanely long in this city. We're restricted by mountains and water, and to add fuel to the fire here, we have record levels of immigration coming into the city for the next 3 years, 1.5 million new immigrants by the year 2025. So you tell me, is Vancouver real estate overvalued, and how would you actually know? Thanks for watching.